Welcome to the Upshot. I'm Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle. Today we're going to talk about economic development. As mayor of the city of Huntsville, which is one of the most prosperous cities in the state of Alabama, I can tell you it's become increasingly difficult to find the resources to support new industry. If we don't attract and grow jobs, we won't have much of a future. And Huntsville has been using every tool in our toolbox to responsibly compete. We've been doing pretty well in this area, but tomorrow's always another day. The stakes are getting higher and the competition is fierce. Our economic development team, which includes our regional partners, has been working on new legislation that will give local governments across Alabama another tool in the economic toolbox. We're calling it the 21st Century Manufacturing Bill, and I believe it is vitally important to every community in Alabama in recruiting large industry. With me here today to talk about the bill is Mark Yarbrough, Chairman of the Limestone County Commission. Mark is one of our key partners on our regional team, and we share a common denominator. Portions of Limestone County are now included within the Huntsville city limits. Also joining us today is Steve Raby, President of Direct Communications. Steve works with us on legislative affairs in Montgomery and Washington, D.C. Mark and Steve, welcome to the Upshot.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're so glad to have you. You know, Mark, we've had some pretty good success in the Huntsville areas in Limestone County. You've had some great success in the entire Limestone County in areas that are outside of even the city of Huntsville and other areas. Talk to us a little bit about what our successes have been so far and what it means to our community.
Well, you know, for the first time in history, Limestone County in 2015 led the state in economic development and job creation with, I think we had around 3,400 jobs and around $380 million worth of investment. Of course, you know, that's headed up by Polaris, and then, of course, GE Aviation. We had Shape Corp, which is a injection molding company located in the southern part of Athens. So we had announced 2 expansions to Carpenter Technologies, over $60 million worth of expansions there, and it was a good year in Limestone County.
Well, you know, when you start talking about Polaris locating there, 2,000 jobs, $130 million worth of investment in the Limestone County area and in Huntsville. You know, the 2,000 jobs, what do they pay, $40,000 a job?
Yes, sir.
So that equals about an $80 million impact on the community year in and year out.
You know, that's the biggest thing. That's so many. I had a news reporter ask me after we had voted, our portion was $1 million, said, what do you tell small business people? You know, you give $1 million to this multi-million-dollar corporation. And I said, well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And she, you know, she kind of said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're talking about $75 to $80 million of payroll that'll be injected in our local economy that does not exist prior to Polaris. And I said, you know, people spend that, they get their hair cut, they buy clothing, they buy gasoline, they live groceries. So it's been a tremendous injection of funds into our community.
Well, and you know, I think you bring up a really good point. As people look at these large announcements like this, 2,000 jobs, $40,000 a job, $80 million coming in the economy, they also don't realize that each one of these jobs, which are in production jobs, has a 2.5 multiplier. So it does provide for 2.5 more people to have a job, which, you know, is really 10,000 more people or 5,000 more people having a job. And that adds to the economy of the area also.
Well, you know, when we toured Polaris, one thing that was kind of neat, they bought 160 welders. They bought it from a welding company local right here in Huntsville. They bought all the, you know, a huge industrial kitchen. They bought all the restaurant equipment from Dyke's Restaurant Supply right there on Jordan Lane. They buy all the diesel fuel they use for their backup generators and some production generators from Limestone County Co-op. So it does trickle down. It not only does it help our existing businesses, but it creates more jobs, more industries that trickle down. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Now, GE Aviation is also, what, another 300 jobs, and it's a little bit more in investment. It looks like about $200 million worth of investment, which helps in, if you run city or county government, it helps in property tax, helps in sales tax, helps support schools, everything.
The biggest impact, and it can't be understated, and on behalf of people of Limestone County, thank you for your leadership in helping bring and land these industries. But the county commission, we live on ad valorem property tax. We collect no sales tax. And with that ad valorem property tax, I fund the sheriff's department, the jail, the council on aging, parks and rec, the probate judge, tax collector, tax assessor, license commissioner, the community probations. goes on and on. So when you bring this type of industry, which in turn brings job, which in turn brings household, the entire portions of Limestone County benefit from the efforts of yourself, Mayor, and the city of Huntsville and our county.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is incentives. Yeah. If we took a strong stand and said we're not going to do any incentives, we're not going to do any incentives, what do you think would happen?
We wouldn't get the industries. Yeah. I mean, it's that cut and say. It's just like I had told one gentleman, says, well, you know, he was questioning incentives. I said, well, I tell you what, if you go buy, you look at a Ford and a Chevrolet. You can buy a Ford or Chevrolet truck. You're happy with either one of them. And one of the dealers says, well, I'll give you free gas for a year. Which one are you going to buy? He said, well, the one with the free gas. And I said, well, these corporations are no different.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it's not like, I mean, we are fortunate, we're blessed with our workforce, with our quality of life that we have here, with our infrastructure that's in place, that's been put in place by the city of Huntsville and joint efforts with Limestone County. We are a premier destination, but there's other great destinations out there we're competing against. And if we don't sweeten the pot, so to say, then we'll be on the outside looking in.
You know, the competitive platform is something I don't think that anybody realizes. I think, Steve, you may realize it more being in Montgomery, that, you know, just as much as we have a great story to tell here in Huntsville, Limestone County, Athens, all of our North Alabama area, there's a lot of other communities that have good stories to tell, and the incentives. I know you face it a lot in Montgomery with people just saying, "Hey, no more incentives. Let's quit paying these incentives and everything." Do you think that if we did that, Tennessee and Georgia and Kentucky
Absolutely
and
not.
Mississippi would quit putting new incentives too?
You know, it's great to listen to both you gentlemen as you talk. We're no longer competing just here in the state. I mean, we're competing more than just regionally, more than nationally, in some cases internationally. So you take your economic development toolbox and limit it, it's going to limit the success that you would have. One of the things, Mayor, that I would want to mention about this 21st century manufacturing zone and the TIF, the way both Limestone County and specifically Huntsville has used it, if you look at incentives or corporate welfare, the way some people mention, this is a unique tool. This gives you flexibility to do infrastructure or to build buildings, whatever you need to do. And though you're coming up with the funding now, these industries pay it back.
Yeah.
It is not corporate welfare, and this is unique to what you are doing here in Huntsville and across North Alabama versus the rest of the state.
You know, a lot of people talk about TIFs, tax increment financing, and what tax increment financing means. And you know, Mark and I have put one through your county commission. We put one through the city of Huntsville for the area out in the Greenbrier area to pay for Polaris and to pay for GE Aviation. And the interesting thing about it is that we set a tax base, which is the tax base of today, and everybody gets their taxes, schools, county, everybody else gets their taxes back that they are paying today. But then that incremental increase that comes in with the $140 million investment by GE or the $200 million investment by Polaris, that incremental increase that comes in of property tax is used to pay back for those, quote, incentives or those enhancements for the property so that we could actually talk those folks into coming. So it really is, it's I think one of the safest tools that you can use in your industrial toolbox to attract an industry is let them pay for themselves and let them pay for their own improvements that come in and make that work.
And you're not placing the burden on the taxpayer.
Right.
To make those infrastructure improvements. You are placing on the industries that you're recruiting. The great thing, Carpenter Technology made a $500 million investment in Limestone County, and as I said earlier, they expanded over $60 million. Well, we give $1 million, that's what we give the commission. But in their second year, they pay $917,000 in educational taxes. They'll pay, their tax bill this next year will be $1,025,000. So the 10-year abatement we give them before the county commission starts collecting, they will have paid like $7.5 to $8 million on that $1 million investment we made for those same taxpayers.
Now that gets to an interesting point. You know, each one of these industries come in, each one's different.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
each one has a different payroll, a different payroll structure, a different number, a different time to actually ramp up their employment to get to the number that they're ultimately going to get to. How do you figure incentives on do you do like we do? Each one is a different, and you have to figure out what the income is and what the payback is?
Exactly, and once again, and I will tend to brag on Mayor Battle, but the one thing that I do admire, and I do speak when I often speak to people about Mayor Battle, your vision you have for that part of the county and that part of the city, Huntsville, and that, you know, everybody reads and gets to see the openings and the announcements, but they don't see the ones that you don't do, the ones that you pass by, the ones that just don't fit in that area, or the numbers do not work. I mean, your return is not worth investment. The reward's not worth the risk. So we try to, and of course, you know, you and I work closely together to be able to determine what is the best thing to represent the people to the best and put their money to work for the best way. So it's, you know, if you look at the formula, we've been really consistent on what, since I've been in office, we've been really consistent on what we give per job or per, you know, for their million return on investment. It's not just that we just throw out there anybody, you know, you can get whatever you want. It's pretty rigorous and strict.
It is interesting. You know, you don't have press conferences, and you don't really talk about the ones that you turn away because that would be a bad faith effort to do that. But we have, you and I have had that conversation on several that just didn't fit the mix of our community, and the payback was too long, and they were asking, you know, the initial asks on it were just too much. And so at some point, you do say no to some of these industries.
Well, you know, I tell people, when I was in private business, I had my own company, I developed over 200 subdivisions, but I probably turned down 10,000, you know, or 6,000 or 7,000 because the numbers just didn't work. And we try to apply that same type of common sense and business sense to these efforts here on industrial development. Not everything's a good fit.
You know, when I was in commercial real estate, my previous life, yours was developing infrastructure and neighborhoods, and mine was investing in commercial real estate and also getting other people to invest. Some of the best deals I ever made were the ones I walked away from.
Exactly.
Exactly. There might be something good to be said for that. Now, we have a TVA certified site, which we share in Limestone County. Tell us a little bit about the TVA certified site.
Well, that's the Sewell property out there. It's 1,400 acres, I believe. And once again, you'll see a tone to my message, Mr. Raby, is that that's Mayor Battle's kind of baby right there. He's fostered that through and got it done. And that's an accomplishment. I think there's only 2 in existence right now. There's one in Georgia and one here. We're excited because not only does that take our efforts and enhance them, now you bring the giant that is the TVA to start helping it recruit this industry and all that. So, you know, we're excited, and I know you are, and we feel like...
With it being a mega site, Steve, you know, those are kind of special projects,
very,
aren't they?
very special. You look across the valley or look across the state at the opportunities for these mega sites, and they're just non-existent. I mean, they're very limited. In addition to the actual site, one of the things that's so exciting in working with you and working here in the North Alabama and across Tennessee Valley is the opportunities that you could use this mega site for. You've got areas of the state that tout themselves in advanced manufacturing, and that's special, but we can. You've got areas of the state that tout themselves in biomedical. We can. You've got very few that can tout research and development. We can. The genomics projects across the board, that's what's so exciting about working with you guys here in North Alabama. This is very different, I'm going to say, than any other part of the state, but it's very different than any other part of the country. You can pick and choose, but you have a lot to pick and choose from.
Yeah. Now the mega site, 1,500 acres, is certified. It has all of its, it has its engineering work done. It has electrical to it. It has a plan for rail to it. It has gas and water, everything that you need infrastructure-wise. Plus, it has your environmental studies already done on the property. So it's kind of a plug and play that they can come in. And last time that we had this site in play, we came in number 2 on the Volkswagen project, which would have been, would have been close to 7,000 jobs, about $1 billion worth of investment, and would have been a project that is a big project coming in.
And the multipliers on these big projects are much greater than the smaller ones. Yeah.
And so the interesting thing about this is, if that project, as that project came in, I mean, we had a total of incentive packages, big incentive package into play with that. The city of Huntsville, along with Limestone County, had something like $60 million. There was another $200 million that the state of Alabama had in play on that. And one of the greatest things is $260 million is a lot of money to have there. But with $1 billion investment and 6,000 people coming in, which would have been, about $240 million a year in payroll hitting the area, then you can start seeing some paybacks, especially if you have some TIF legislation, which is a tax increment financing, and we could take that $1 billion and use the additional money coming off that $1 billion to make a payback for the incentives, and then we let the company itself pay for itself. So
that's so different than anything's going on in the state and anything going on in the Southeast right now. Really
so tell us, you were kind of the author of the 21st Century Manufacturing Act, or you helped get it to where it could get through the legislature, the first section, and now we're up, and I think it will be number 11 on the ballot in November as being certified under constitutional amendment so that it can be used.
It's very important that this is Constitutional Amendment 11 on the ballot, and it requires an affirmative vote of everyone in the state. We've got 14 constitutional amendments statewide on the ballot, and so it's important that the business community and the leadership community get this message out. I would offer a couple of observations, Mayor. Once we had the opportunity to explain this, and I've got to give credit, in the Senate, Senator Steve Livingston was our sponsor, and in the House, Representative Anthony Daniels was the sponsor. Once we were able to communicate this, the fact that it passed the House 98-0, and it passed the Senate 28-0, shows you from people all across the state, once they understand what we're doing, and it takes some education because no one else in the state is doing this, how effective this can be. And so we were successful in North Alabama communicating this message. Now we've got to go one step forward and communicate that for November, so that we vote yes on Amendment 11.
Well, in part of it, I think that we've got to stress is this allows an industry to pay back the incentives that are necessary to bring them here, and it allows us to use future taxes off of that industry to pay that back. And so the risk to the taxpayer is very minimal. And also, it's wise money management for us because it doesn't just strip us of everything that we want to do, because obviously if a $1 billion industry comes in and it brings in 6,000 workers, we've got to work on roads, we've got to work on sewers, we've got to work on neighborhoods, we've got to work on infrastructure for those. So it doesn't strip the community of all the capacity that we have to be able to actually do what needs to be done.
And I think that's one of the best points of this, just what you said. It does not put an undue burden on your already the amount of revenue you have that you have to do to provide the basic service, the roads, the streets, waters, and maintain what you have. It doesn't place a burden on that. You still are able to have that money, that revenue to do that, but it does bring in the additional revenue that actually the corporation itself is paying for. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting year if we have a mega site, which we do. There are some parameters on the 21st Century Manufacturing Act that says that it does have to be a mega site. Talk about some of the rules, I guess you would call it, or it has to be over so many acres, so much investment.
The quick version of this, the site itself has to be at least 250 contiguous acres. That is a huge site. Additionally, the minimum investment exceeds $100 million. Again, that's a big project. And if you look at the limitations on the industry, we opened that up. As I said, it can be biomedical, it can be automotive, it can be aerospace. That part is very open to allow communities to develop a mega site or a mega project. But those are the principal limitations. So not everyone is going to use this. You're not going to use it to develop a small retail center, and you're not going to use it to develop apartments or residential. So
It's
this
made
is
for
very
manufacturing and homes
Absolutely.
very specifically. You know, one of the interesting things is, and this kind of closes out our conversation a little bit, but you know, one of the things that Huntsville, Limestone County, our whole North Alabama area has been known for is doing precursor actions, doing things that set the foundation for growth in the future. We did it with Research Park. 50 years ago, we started at Research Park, and today it's second largest research park in America, employs 29,000 people, provides huge income for our area. And this, I think, is a lot like that.
Yes,
This,
it is.
you know, we don't have anything in mind for this 21st Century Manufacturing Act, but it opens up that door to what the future could bring to us. And so talk a little bit about some of the future that it could bring on that, whether it's on that 1,500 acre mega site or whether it's on a 300 acre site that we have somewhere else. What kind of industry could it bring to us?
You know, the great thing is it's very flexible, other than talking about the size of it. But we have the opportunity, as aviation grows, and aviation is growing in the state, to expand and do some things both in Limestone County and Madison County around the airport.
Build rocket ships, build Sierra Nevada
Absolutely.
Dream Chasers, build.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to composite aircrafts, whether in aviation, whether it's you know, aviation or whether it's Earth orbit. And so that's going to be an industry, and people are looking at this community. And it gives us an opportunity to launch off of airplanes, aviation platforms, missile platforms, or deep space platforms. So it's a wonderful opportunity going back to the roots of Huntsville and Redstone area.
Has some chances in automotive. We could land another automotive plant, but also, I mean, I think there's some other things. We're looking for someone to produce rocket engines right now, and there's several different sites in play on rocket engines. We're looking for aviation and building helicopter engines right now, and so there's a lot of play there. I mean,
unmanned aerial.
Unmanned aerial
That's,
satellites, when we start talking about CubeSats going up and some of the larger satellite systems going up, you know, there's just a lot of potential out there. And Mark, you must get really excited about kind of thinking about what that could be.
Well, I really do. And just like Mr. Raby said earlier, you know, we're in an area right here, and I tell people sometimes, we have such a workforce from blue collar all the way to actual rocket scientists.
Right.
And you know, the stark reality is when you stop growing, you start dying. That's true of us sitting here in cities, counties, and everything. And you got evidence of that around the state and around the country. This Amendment 11 is a key piece of legislation that is passed, gives us a very important tool in the toolbox, as you said, to be able to continue growing, continue prospering. And you know,
It's not very exciting, is it? When you hear about tax increment financing,
It's not,
I see people's eyes glaze over.
I know it's not, but it's such an important tool because it, you know, without it, it makes it you know, it ties our hands so much to be able to compete against. Because we do. What Mayor said earlier, we don't compete statewide no more. We don't compete in the Southeast. We compete globally.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, you've got to have the tools to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And to enhance our toolbox, we've got to vote yes on Amendment 11.
Yes.
And people understand that means jobs, jobs, jobs.
Yes, it does.
And you know, we all worked real hard, and Steve, especially you, worked very hard to get Amendment 11 on the ballot. And Senator Livingston, Representative Anthony Daniels, both of them have just really stepped up, and our whole delegation really stepped up. And if I counted right, there are only 14 people who didn't vote, and they didn't vote, and so nobody voted no on the legislation when it came through. But you know, one of the things that we have to realize is, you know, even if we land one of these mega sites and if we have the tools in the toolbox to be able to do it, and if we can keep from stripping ourselves, because with each of these, you know, say you have a Volkswagen come in, there's 6,000 jobs, and you have that 2.5 multiplier, so you're going to have 6,000 people coming in working for Volkswagen, and you're going to have another 9,000 people coming in working in the drugstores or building houses for them or working in the restaurants or something. So, I mean, you're going to have 15,000 additional jobs in your area that come off of that. And having the tools to be able to provide for that industry itself, but also us be able to provide infrastructure as those 15,000 decide where they're going to live and everything else. That's so very important to a community, and you know, sometimes I get a little frustrated watching people's eyes glaze over about it, because they've got to understand that if you don't have the financial tools or the financial ability to afford these jobs will go to
We'll be reading it in the paper
overseas, and we'll be
somewhere
reading the
else.
paper about somebody else picking that up. So I think that, you know, between all of us, I want to say one thing is thank you for your partnership.
Absolutely.
Limestone County has been a great partnership with the city of Huntsville and done a great job. And Steve, thank you for pushing this legislation, pushing it through in the last legislative session. I remember we were down to some nights that we were a little bit up late trying to figure out how to get the last votes out of it and everything else. And you did a marvelous job. And I hope that the people out there realize that this is an important vote that's going to be happening in November. This vote can provide jobs, prosperity for North Alabama for a long time, but not only for North Alabama, it can give some tools for South Alabama to use and all other sections of the state. So thank you for the work that y'all do.
And thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your leadership.
Absolutely, thank you.
To Mark and Steve, thank you for joining me today. I'm Mayor Tommy Battle. We'll see you next time on The Upshot.